What is going on, guys? We are about to start the winter split. I got a fancy new camera. I'm still playing around with how I want it all mapped out. So if it looks bad or if you have any tips, let me know. I'm using a Sony A6000. I'm going to be using it for the RLCS shows. Eventually, I'll have a green screen behind me, but haven't put that up just yet. But let's get into winter split format and what we should expect going forward. Now, if you don't know what's coming in the winter split, it's different. No more Swiss outside of qualifiers. We have groups now, groups of 4 teams. So how does this all play out? Who advances, who doesn't? There's tiebreakers. It's going to be a blast. So let's go over it. There's not too much to talk about here, but we're just going to do it pretty much quick and dirty. So let's get into it real quick right here. As you can see, I just made this incredibly quickly so you guys could see the seeds of what the groups are like and why we seeded it this way. Basically, if you come in first in your group, you go to the upper bracket. That is very, very important. Only 4 teams up there. You're looking fantastic. 2 lives going into the bracket stage. If you finish number 2 or number 3 in your group, you go down to the lower bracket. Much longer road, but you're still alive. If you finish last in your group, well, you're going home. So let's talk about seeds first. Then we'll talk about tiebreakers and all that. So for seeding purposes, there's a reason behind the madness here. As you can see, total seed is basically just the total seed value of each group, which is just even across the board. That is like the first thing that you want pretty much locked in. So the groups are balanced in terms of how hard they are. Next up is basically when you have different parts of a tournament, you want the perfect matchups in terms of seed to happen as late as possible. So what that means is like, say a 1 versus 4 matchup, you want as late as you can possibly have it, where it's supposed to be later into like 3rd stage of a tournament, if that's the final stage. If like 1 versus 8, you want that as late as it can possibly be, which in this case is in the group stage. So let me just go over Group A real quick with you. So Group A, you have the perfect seeds of 1 and 8. So basically, we tried to keep perfect seeds wherever you were closest to be perfect, which means like 1 versus 8, but 8 versus 10 as well, wherever that could be perfect later on. So let's go over 1 first. So 1, their perfect seed is 8. They cannot play in the bracket because if you win your group, you go to the upper bracket. So there's no chance of 1 playing 8 ever again. So you give them their perfect matchup, which is the 8th seed. So that is why 1 and 8 are in the same group. Same as 2 and 7, 3 and 6, and 4 and 5. Then you move on. 8 wants to play the 9 seed. But as we talked about earlier, if you come in 2 or 3 in your group, you go to the lower bracket match. That's where you want 8 versus 9. You want that perfect matchup when 2 teams are battling to see who goes home, who moves on into a bracket. So 8 would play 9 there. That's why they're not in the same group, because you don't want them to play twice. That'd be kind of boring. So we put the 10th seed here. The 10th seed then wants to play their perfect match, their final opponent or their weak match. They want to be perfect inside the group. 10 versus 15, because if you come in last in your group, well, you're not playing anymore. So this is the only part of the stage where you have a chance to have a perfect matchup in terms of your seed. So that is why 10 and 15 are together. That is why 9 and 16, 12 and 13, 11 and 14. So really the only seeds that are not perfect in each group are the 2 and 3 seeds. They kind of mix and match a little bit because they're going to play in the lower bracket round 1. And now this is, of course, if like everything goes perfectly, where the top seed wins every group and so on and so forth. But you always plan for that. That's never how it actually happens, but that's how you plan for it when you are looking into a tournament. So that lower bracket, I don't have a picture up for you, but basically lower bracket would be, those 2 versus 3. So Group A versus Group B. And then whoever wins that would move on. So it would be like 8 versus 9. 8 would win. 7 versus 10. so they would move on as well. And then I can't remember exactly where they play each other, but the other groups get involved there. Like it would be Group C and Group D. So I think it would be a 5 versus 8 or something like that. So all 4 groups in the lower bracket are planned out. I didn't put up a playoff bracket thing because that's not the important part of what I want to talk about here. But basically, in the group of 4 in the lower bracket, there's going to be one team from every group down there. They will battle it out to see who they play later from that upper bracket that drops down. So you won't see a lot of rematches. They're going to happen infrequently. The only time you could is the lower bracket later on when the upper bracket teams come down. But in that case, it's going to be a 3 versus 5 or 4 versus 6, 3 versus 5. Now, the reason for that is because in a normal bracket where there is 2 rounds, where there's a lower bracket, that's how it would play out. Because there was already an opportunity for 4 versus 5 and 3 versus 6. So that is why that is how that is. So yeah, sure, those are skewed a little bit, but they always are skewed in normal brackets as well. So that is that. Next up is tiebreaker. So obviously every group, you're playing 1 match, best of 5, versus every opponent. So every team is going to play 3 matches. Now, so the tiebreakers are something I push really hard. Because in the past, we've done it like, you could win your group on game differential. Then it comes down to like goal differential. Head-to-head is thrown in there sometimes as well, too. So we changed it around a little bit. There's a couple ways where ties can happen. Ties can happen if 3 teams tie at, say, a 2-1. The other team would have to be 0-3. 2 teams tie at 1, or I'm sorry, 3 teams tie at 1-2, while the other team goes 3-0. Or there could be ties of 2 teams at 2-1, 2 at 1-2. Those are your ties. So if you have a tie of 2-1s and 1-2s, it's pretty easy. They just play one more tiebreaker game to see who comes in first and who comes in last in their group. So the basic premise of this is we wanted tiebreakers for the very important games. Ones where you're going home, so if you're coming last in your group, we want a tiebreaker match there. We want a tiebreaker match for first because it goes to an upper bracket game. It's kind of like the same thing of like the qualifiers for a tournament, where say we invite the top 8 teams to go to a regional. If there's a tie in that 8th spot, they play a tiebreaker game. Tiebreaker games in case for this are best of 5. Because we want to get the day going, because that's all being played on day 1. So if you're tied at 2-1, you are playing a tiebreaker game to win your group. No matter what, to win a group, you have to win 3 matches in group stage. That could include a tiebreaker, but you have to. There's no way to be in first by yourself at 2-1. Look at the end of the groups. And it works the opposite way of like you can't be eliminated if you've won a game in group stage until you've lost 3. So there is a case, obviously, in tiebreakers, if you're 1-2, that you've won 1 and then you go home, but you have to lose 3 at the very least. So basically 3 lives in this group stage or 3 victories will get you a first place seed into that upper bracket. The other tiebreaker, which gets a little bit more confusing, where there's 3-way ties, and that one's probably the one that's happens more likely, I would say, where there's 2-1s or 1-2s. Now, this is where the old tiebreakers come into play. Game differential will be huge. I think it's game differential. Now, don't quote me on this because I think it's in the rule book, but I believe it's game differential first of the entire group. Then it goes to head-to-head game differential between those 3 tied teams. Then it goes to whatever you came in as. If you were the number 1 seed, you're going to win all those tiebreakers. If you were a bottom seed, then you're not going to win any of them. I believe those are the 3 tiebreakers. If a team exits the tiebreakers, it reverts back and you start over again. So it could mean like if in the head-to-head game differential, if one team is better than the other 2, then so they would advance out of tiebreakers and move on. The other 2 would then be compared head-to-head because you would go back to that spot. So that could be also happen in like a group game differential where if one team is better than the other 2 tie, it'll go to head-to-head between those 2. So it's a pretty, for the most part, most times it'll be based on head-to-heads by the end of it. But if they all do tie, it comes down to where you entered the tournament as. If you came in as the 8th seed, you tied the 9th seed, well, the 8th seed gets this spot. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because in a 3-way tie, For first place, you take the top 2 in those tiebreakers. They will play a tiebreaker match for first place in the group. There's not enough time in the day to play these tiebreakers completely out. We could have had a multi-round system of 2 versus 3. Whoever wins plays 1 for top of the group. But to move it along and to keep game differential kind of important, we decided to just do 1 versus 2 in terms of tiebreakers. So if you do finish 2-1, there is a chance that you are just the 3rd seed of that group if your game differential was poor and there was a 3-way tie. So there is a chance to be 3rd seed that way. But you will play a tiebreaker game, 1 best of 5, 1 versus 2 to decide that group. Now, so again, the reason why we do this is because it is more preferred to at least find a winner of a group based on a match than just based on tiebreakers. And I get it. It's kind of like a push and pull where you decide the 3rd seed that way where you throw them out of a tiebreaker. It's like, well, at some point, you just got to balance broadcast length and all that stuff. So that's how that works. On the opposite side, the 1 and 2, basically 3-way tie, that one works the complete opposite, basically. The bottom 2 in tiebreakers will battle it out to see who goes home, who gets that 3rd place spot. If you finish the best in game differential or whatever tiebreaker it is, land 1 and 2, you get the number 2 seed in that group. So you don't have to worry about playing that tiebreaker game. The tiebreaker will be played between 3rd and 4th. Whoever loses goes home. Whoever wins, 3rd seed for that group. That's how that all plays out. So once again, it's group stage into a bracket where the group winners get an upper bracket advantage. They get 2 lives. They advance pretty far down into the bracket as well, those top 4 teams. So you definitely want to be there. If you are a lower bracket, you can make a run. It's going to have to be a long run. I think it's 5 or 6 games in a row to win it all. But you can make that run. 2 will play a 3 seed from some other group, and then so on and so forth. You'll continue on through that lower bracket. Again, though, tiebreakers is the important one. I think people will get confused by it. That's why I wanted to make a video on it. And basically, we just wanted, or at least I wanted, I definitely pushed this hard, was didn't want a huge impact of going home or having that upper bracket advantage to just come down to goal differential or it's a 1 game differential. We wanted them to really earn it. No, play again because we see you guys tied at 2-1. We don't know who's better because you could be well, they won the head-to-head, but they also means that the other team lost to someone lower than them that they shouldn't have. So it's really hard to tell. So for the really important games, again, the ones going home and the ones going to the upper bracket, we get a tiebreaker game, best of 5. Those matches are going to be incredibly hype. Those will be on those day 1 streams, so definitely watch those. It's going to be a ton of fun. And then, after maybe 2 regionals or so, then, then we want to hear that feedback of, do we like tiebreaker games? Do you not like tiebreaker games? Do you think it should just be game differential? Do you think we should have added in goal differential somewhere? Because right now, that's not even in there. So let us know, because I think that is the best thing about Reddit and the best thing about this community of the esports side is they'll let you know if they like something or not. And I see it. I see it all. And it's pretty funny sometimes. And sometimes I think, they have some good points, And then you try and blend it in the following time and all that. So that's all I got. Winter Split is coming. Very, very soon. Well, I guess it's already started. Close qualifiers happen. Yada, yada, yada. We got Aqua and Daniel playing. It's going to be great. Yeah, that's all I got. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the new camera. Hopefully I look good. I mean, I always look good. Come on. Let's be real here. But hopefully I look even better. Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys for watching. Sorry about the rambling. I ramble a lot when I do these videos, but hey, it is what it is. You've come here for a reason, and the reason is half of it to hear my rambles. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the RLCS desk.